just about to prepare my next podcast. It is with Marco Lufen, who is a surf professional, but not only that, he's also working for a tech company, and interesting combination, super modern tech, surfing, and we will hear hopefully how he's combining that, both of these activities, what he can learn from either side, and more importantly for me, for the mental part, is how he actually deals with the waves, the winds, the weather that he can influence. So this is going to be an interesting one. Stay tuned, and hope you like it.
And yes, that's Marco doing some freestyle elements just in front of the beach. So, good morning, Marco.
Good morning.
So, you are in South Africa at the moment and enjoying the summertime. So, how did you start actually your day?
Well, it was a bit of a different start than on the Northern Hemisphere where you are located right now. I did go for a surf. The sun is shining. The weather is sweet. I had a coffee afterwards. And now this is my second meeting this morning, enjoying the African sun and the early sunrise. Yeah, can't complain. Beautiful.
Fantastic. So we have met each other a couple of years ago, but for the audience, let you introduce yourself shortly. Who are you and why are you actually in South Africa and why there's surfing morning?
Yeah, no, definitely. So my name is Marco. I'm originally German, living actually in the Netherlands for quite some years already. Used to be a professional windsurfer for more than 10 years, still doing it semi-professional, while actually also having a corporate career at Siemens. And now while I'm actually in South Africa, I'm actually visiting a few clients of mine that I have down here. And there's a lot of business to be made here in South Africa, a lot of processes or process digitization. Is happening right at the moment. Obviously it's summertime or summer vibes on the Southern Hemisphere. It's a quite good package that combining that with surfing in the morning. So can't complain.
Sounds perfect mix, actually, to be honest. I envy you. We have rain and 5 degrees here in Zurich at the moment, which is slightly different than what you were experiencing.
Yeah, I heard horror stories. Horror is a bit of a bad or a negative connotated word, but it's summertime here on the Southern Hemisphere now, and it's definitely a different lifestyle that you are living right now in Zurich.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dive in. So you are, just to be exact, you are a windsurfer and have been a windsurf professional, right? That is correct. So how did you came to this kind of hobby, and then how it actually became a sport for you, professionally even?
Yeah, so I actually did start windsurfing at the age of 8, and my dad brought me into windsurfing. He's a passionate windsurfer himself as well. Yeah, ever since I'm little, I was hooked on the sport, the complete feeling of freedom on the water, playing on the water, playing with the elements, water, wind. Yeah, and just being out and not, somewhere, how do you say, being stuck. So it's a very active sport, very nature sport. I did do it for 10 years professionally on the PWA, which is the Professional Windsurfing Association. It's basically like the ATP when you would want to compare to tennis of surfing or windsurfing in that sense. And I did do the discipline freestyle, meaning that you do flips and tricks on the water. You don't need much waves to jump, but you're using effectively the wind, the power of the wind in your sail in order to jump off. And you can compare it a little bit to, let's say, skating or street skating, when you see the people or the boys grinding over rails or doing 60s, kickflips, something like that would be an analogy when it comes to windsurfing.
How did you? I mean, how did you become a professional? Where and how did that start? So, I mean, starting in 8 years, and you're from Germany. Where were you located? Or where did you grow up?
Yeah, good question. I actually was born and raised near the area of Düsseldorf. So there's actually not much water around. There's potentially a lake every now and then when we have big storms where one can go for a windsurf. But I did travel a lot to the Netherlands on the weekend, and my parents had a camper van where we were traveling around Europe to all the windy spots, southern France or the Canary Islands, Greece in the summer, in order, to be able to windsurf. I got so hooked on that sport that, it was always my child or a dream to become a professional. And then I made it possible, did it 10 years professionally on the tour. Still trying to pursue my passion as much as I can. That's why I'm also here right now in South Africa, to be able to, still do the sport also in wintertime.
That sounds terrific, but it's quite difficult controlling. I mean, there is the water, obviously on the sea, it's not still, it's, and it's kind of moving. There are currents, then you have the winds, the waves. It's quite a challenging, but you never lost the happiness, or the challenge was kind of your happy moment then, probably.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think windsurfing, you cannot compare, or surfing in general, you cannot compare to any other sports out there. For example, football or tennis. I mean, you have always the same conditions. The is cut in the same way. The shape of the ball is always the same. The height of the goals is always the same. The distance between the lines is always the same. So in windsurfing or surfing, conditions are ever changing, right? So every day you hit the water, you got different conditions. You have to adapt. You have to basically look at the currents, look at the tides, if it's low or high tide, and it's changing from 1 hour to the other. So you got to be very aware, and you got to do quite some research up front before you want to hit the water, in order to select the right spot with the right tides, right currents, as you said, that it makes it also enjoyable. Because sometimes you can see yourself being caught up in currents that take you out on the sea where you don't want to be at. And it's a whole, how do you say, quite some analysis and research has to be done up front before you hit the water somewhere.
Exactly. So that's actually just leading into the next question. So there's a lot of preparation work that you actually have done prior to any kind of event, professional challenge that you were attending to. So always, and this is kind of apps, websites, or do you also do physical testing? I mean, just going out and checking the different times as well? Or how did you do that?
So, I mean, nowadays it's only checking wind and current charts on different websites that provide statistics about wind. For example, Wind Guru, you got a wind finder, windy, then tidal streams. So it's basically all online. You're not really going out there and testing it. That would be a waste of time. So you're basically doing your analysis and research prior going onto the water.
Okay, so that sounds actually quite like a regular job, right? Doing your homework, then you can doing analysis. If you go out to a client, actually, it's quite the same aspect. No?
Definitely,
or very similar. Yeah,
very similar. I mean, you always got to adapt to every client, right? So you got to adapt to all the conditions. Metaphorically speaking, it resembles it quite a bit. And obviously, preparation has to be done in every setting, whether you want to hit the water before or when you are talking to clients. There's definitely some analogies that one can draw in between those.
How did you said that you normally kind of prepare quite sophisticated. Any kind of examples where you have prepared, but then it turned out to be completely different, or the elements changed? And the interesting thing is then how did you actually? I mean, you prepared, you have a kind of an anticipation how it actually is, but then it's not the case. So you're out there on the surfboard. You have picked probably a size of a sail, which has obviously an impact on your tricks and what you actually can do. How do you deal with that situations then? Are you re-evaluating the tricks that you're doing? What is going on through your mind, especially if you are in a competition?
Well, good question. So once you're on the water and you're basically planning, you're assessing the conditions yourself. Like, how does the the sail feel? Is it too big or too small? How does the board feel? Do you potentially need to change it? Or do you, once you're, let's say, in a competition and in a heat, and all of a sudden the wind picks up. So you need to adapt yourself to the ability of what kind of moves and tricks you can do in these winds with this sail size or board size. Or would you rather want to go in and change your equipment, which is also taking off time from your time to perform, actually? So it's basically you got to make that call yourself to either stay out, deal with the conditions that you there, and deal with it in a way that, okay, I can do these certain moves and tricks, and that will bring me the following amount of points to be able to advance to the next round. Or do I come in, change the equipment, and then being able to perform even better in a shorter time, but maybe better moves in order to win the heat, to get into the next round? In the end, you're basically half an hour before your heat, you're always cruising out, going back and forth, checking the equipment if everything is suiting. And then you pretty much know, unless there's not a huge storm all of a sudden coming, you will be fine, like with going exactly with that sail size.
And then are you actually to talk to a hobby surfer, windsurfer, and he was telling me that he started to visualize the things that he wants to do, especially in terms of the tricks. How are you working there? I mean, is it lots of training, or is it also some mental aspects in that?
I think the advancing in windsurfing or progressing in windsurfing, you have to take a few parameters into consideration. It's either, it's first of all, the time on the water, actually training the moves in wind and waves. But also, like, it's the preparation up front, whether we talk about mental preparation, physical preparation, visualizing moves, and also letting yourself or a friend or someone else is filming you, so you can see what you did wrong during the move when you're practicing actively, and sort of going in this analysis state where you're really trying to, first of all, visualize it and also see yourself performing that trick over and over again, and where do you twist and tweak certain things in order to move ahead, right? So it there's not really a way how one can perform or train exactly the way you can perform on the water, on land. I think do some rowing exercises, like holding a boom, for example, that's something similar. You can do a lot of planking exercises for core stability, or general physical fitness obviously helps in order to perform, but you need to adapt to the elements of water, wind, and they're ever changing, right? So, I mean, physical fitness, being focused, being sharp, and being able to adapt actually is the key. And the only constant is change there. So you need to be able to work with different conditions all the time.
Do you have any kind of examples where you had some and especially competition wise, where you kind of were caught up in the worst? Suddenly big waves start kind of rolling in, or something crashed completely, something a big failure, or even a super success where you won the whole competition?
I had a very crazy experience, actually, one of my very first contests that was happening in Austria on a lake Neusiedler See, for German-speaking people. And that was usually happening always in the last week of April, first week of May. During the competition, just right before my heat, we had this mega storm that was brewing up. You could see it coming over. You were like, oh God, we were all on our small sails already. And you saw this massive front coming with like 50 knots of wind, very stormy, very powerful wind. And in the end, there was no chance to go onto a smaller sail because we were already all using our small sails. So basically, the competition was sort of being put on hold while we were in the storm, and we were trying to hide in the water underneath our sails, because it was just like flying water all the time. And as long as you would stay low, you would stay in the water. But as soon as you would go up or lift even your board or sail up, it will just fly away. So that was quite of a gnarly or a very different type of competition that I've never really experienced up until then, that we were actually not able to go out because it was too strong. Mm. But then there was also other occasions, for example, in Sylt, the island of Sylt, northern part of Germany, where there was always a windsurf World Cup happening, where we had this massive cold front approaching us with storms gusting up to 70 knots, which was absolutely mental back then, and very strong, big waves, a lot of current. And one of my friends almost drowned out there and luckily got rescued by one of the jet ski drivers. But yeah, I mean, playing with the elements of wind and water is always exposing yourself also to some risk, and you're aware that Mother Nature is always more powerful than you are at the end of the day.
Yes. Do you, I was actually just about to ask that if there was any kind of life-threatening kind of situations, and you just talked about that. So are you in that context? I mean, how do you prepare normally for, not necessarily for this extreme situation, but in general, how do you prepare yourself mentally to be this agile and that, aware, situation aware, let's put it that way? Did you do anything particular? So actually, can you...
I mean, there's always a general preparation before competitions or in general before hitting the water. I always have my routines. I do some breathing exercises. I do some stretching. I try to be on my own 5 to 10 minutes on the beach, not like meditating in a sense and like but just trying to make yourself aware, that calming yourself. And actually the most important part is to stay calm out there, because once you start panicking, the amount of O2 in your blood is going lower and lower and lower. So basically the key is to stay relaxed as far as you can, and then not trying to work against the forces of Mother Nature. But I think in general, for me, myself, I mean, I do a lot of yoga in the morning. I do half an hour of yoga. I do some breathing exercises, which is calming me down personally. And everyone is having different techniques, how to prepare one before a competition or for going out to extreme conditions. But for me personally, I would say it's also, you feel a lot less nervous and stressed with time, because you have the experience of having been on the water in various different conditions. You know how it might be and how it will be. And then basically also calming yourself with breathing exercise front. And that is actually my preparation.
And if you're on the water, is there anything particular because then obviously you can't do any stretching, any breathing. Is there any kind of mind tricks that you play? It's just kind of like you stay relaxed.
I mean, once you're out there on the water, I feel quite comfortable being out in the water also when it gets heavier conditions, but it also with time now. I mean, I've been windsurfing now for almost more than 20 years. And I've been exposed to different conditions in various different locations. So I think I'm able to adapt, but I mean, every now and then there's situations where you have such strong currents or such strong winds that, basically you're trying to adapt once being out there, because you cannot really tell how it is until you're out there on the water.
Yeah, of course. How now, kind of taking into consideration that there's these changing elements, and obviously sometimes you're in competition, or nowadays when you're not in a competition just for fun, what is for you then, like, what does it feel to be successful, kind of like, or what is it to have how do you describe that? I've done a back flip, front flip, or, is that for you kind of the definition, or just doing it, being out there?
Do you mean now solely looking at my sport, or do you also look now from a corporate point of view? Because I'm obviously...
Yeah, first of all on the sport, but then actually that was exactly what my intention to then going into the direction of the normal, regular life of a non-windsurfer.
Yeah, how can I describe it, or how can I mean it, whenever you perform a move or you go on the water and you stick a move, for example, it's a feeling of joy and pleasure, right? I mean, you train for it for such a long time, and then all of a sudden, boom, you perform that move and you're not falling in, and you're basically automized that trick now over the years. And basically, I mean, it's a great feeling, right? Feeling comfortable out there. But I think you become very used within time to those feelings. I mean, I think with every sport that you start new, you're completely hooked and a bit more stoked in the beginning, I would say, than in a later stage, because you become accustomed to feelings. It's very repetitive in its sense. It's like skiing. Like the first time you're probably doing powder skiing, you're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And then after having done it for 5 years in various locations, potentially even having done helicopter skiing, you're like, yeah, okay, just another day on the slopes. Yeah, cool, great. It was a great day. I think you always gotta, I like to mix it up for myself. I always like to learn something new or learn something or try to set myself a goal for a session to learn a new trick or to do something different, just in order to have that little extra element of excitement in there and of progression. That's how I call it. Yeah, that's when I solely look now at the sport and performing moves and stuff. You were also asking or referring to, okay, how does that resemble or how do I portray that in my working life? I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, exactly.
I think in general, every athlete or someone who did do a sport with a certain determination and dedication actually shows that he or she can go, let's say, an extra mile in order to achieve something that someone else is not able to achieve. So they have this extra bit of motivation in them, and just when you fall down, have the ability to stand up again, and that not only one time, but potentially 100 or 1,000,000 times until it even works, right? So basically procedure of falling, standing up again, falling, standing up again until you make it and until you reach your goal. Because in the end, that's what the development and progression is about. Look at the baby who's learning how to walk. First they crawl, first they try to turn around, then they crawl, and then they event step by step, and then they're doing it even in a coordinated way at some point. So it's all about progression and development. And I think I try to, like with my work right now, I think being exposed to different cultures, different people, changing conditions at windsurfing, it basically prepares you quite well for, I would say, in general life, also corporate. You have to work with so many different people from different nationalities, different backgrounds. You have to, and in the end of the day, it's a human to human transaction up until now. Let's wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's wait till AI will take all of our jobs. Now, jokes aside, but it's basically learning or acquiring a skill of being able to communicate with people in a way that they trust you, right? I mean, that's what it is in the end of the day.
100%. But it's actually quite interesting. My previous podcast was with a corporate innovation person, with Daniel. And we were explicitly talking about the fear of failure, especially in an entrepreneurial context, and also a little bit more focusing on less Swiss and probably also a little bit German kind of mindset, right? Because I mean, that you are afraid of failing, that you don't actually dare, to kind of be not successful with something. And what you tell, and Daniel, he was from his nature quite a relaxed person, and he just, he didn't care is probably not the right word, but I mean, he was not that much bothered by failure. And what you just said now is because of your sport, you have basically almost trained the muscle, right? They kind of like, okay, this is the way you have to do it, right? You have to fail in order to actually succeed, right?
Definitely. I think in an entrepreneurial mind or world, it might be a bit different because failure means burning money, right? Money is a scarce resource. So I can imagine that in a professional setting, you wouldn't want to fail as much as, for example, windsurfing, because falling in the water doesn't cost you as much.
No, probably not.
I do get what you mean. I mean, it's the ability to adapt, learn, and standing up again and not being afraid. If you learn that from a very young age and you're being wired like that in your head, then basically it does prepare you to a certain extent to everyday situations, also in corporate life, right?
Yeah, I think actually that for me now, also a little bit personally speaking, I think now setting the money aspect aside, right? You want to be perceived as a successful entrepreneur, as a successful person. You have your career, and you have this kind of aura around you. You're just going forward, but that's not really the case, is it? and it's not natural, at least, right, to have only successes. Then there's a lot of talks about that, obviously, also in different forums, about that you only learn really properly through failure.
I think everyone defines success for themselves different.
Yeah. So that's the reason also why I went into a little bit about the kind of like when it was really choppy, whether, you know, how, and you couldn't actually perform the tricks that you set out for, but you still had a feeling of accomplishment, right? So you said, okay, this were the situation, that was kind of like the max I could take out, or could.
Yeah, definitely. How do you say? I mean, it's about that adaptability part that I was talking about, and then even though you had different expectations going into that competition, or let's say a meeting, or metaphorically speaking for any other thing, you have to adapt to what is given in front of what is given to you, right? I mean, you cannot always take a cooking, how do you say, a recipe and follow step 1 till 10. Sometimes you can skip step 2, 3, 4, 5 and go from 1 to 7 straight. Sometimes you have to follow the list, or sometimes you're even only going to go up to step number 5. So it's, and in the end of the day, I mean, it's a human to human transaction. And I think people want to communicate or want to be together with people that are, how do you say it? You don't want to be surrounded by assholes, right? And you don't want to be working with assholes. Just be very strict. I couldn't.
No, I understand that. So kind of like, could you also say that surfing is actually also a life school, and helps to actually prepare you? Because like listening to you, obviously that also in the expectation of you, exactly what you can control and what is outside of your control. I mean, this is exactly how life is, right? Being aware that you actually have much less control than let's put it that way, a normal person. I mean, I have always had also in business life specifically, right, in sales cases or in projects, that you have a lot of control, which you actually don't have, right? And I would assume that the windsurfing lifestyle is actually a perfect life school from young state. No, would you agree?
Honestly, Pascal, I think if I can only speak for myself, right? I mean, I haven't pursued like this mega corporate career that I was straight when after school, I don't know, went straight into working life. But I mean, as I said, communication for me is skill number 1 that one needs to have. Adaptability, skill number 2. If I now look at surfing or windsurfing and how this has prepared me, I had to plan my own trips. I had to book my own apartments. I had to book the flights. I had to prepare myself for the competitions. I had to deal with sponsor contracts, right? I had to, basically, you are being entrepreneurial and self-employed on your own. And basically that does prepare you to a certain extent. Obviously, challenges become different the older you get, and in different industries, right? But in the end of the day, it's being exposed to challenges, being able, okay, how do I solve it? How do I tackle that? With who do I speak to? And with how much drive and motivation can you actually achieve those things at the end of the day? And I think, surfing is a great life school, and also being surrounded by Mother Nature is definitely something that I wouldn't want to miss. And it always gives me the ability to also zoom out in times when it's only corp and only work, because I know how the other side can be as well.
It gives you a fantastic balance. And I think starting the day probably with how long did you surf now this morning?
1.5 hours, I think.
It's probably not a bad start
No,
for the
it
day.
is. I can't complain. It's brilliant. Literally best start for me. That's that, having a coffee after and then going for work.
All right. So for the closing of our podcast, I had actually some ideas about a little bit more fun closing. So what is your couple of fun questions? What is your favorite spot to surf?
Favorite spot to surf? I think from a surfing point of view, not windsurfing, I would say it's Jeffreys Bay in South Africa. It's one of the longest right-hand waves in the world. Very great location, great vibe, and a lot of small and big fish in the water there in Jeffreys Bay. And I think windsurfing wise, I have been in 2015, I've been in Western Australia, and that has been the best windsurfing I've ever had up there at a spot called Narlu, which is up the coast on the west coast of Australia, and that has been absolutely fabulous. Very, very good.
What do you prefer? Big waves, gusts, or strong winds? What is the perfect surf condition that you prefer?
So basically, I did windsurfing professionally, and I'm more and more turning also into surfing. So windsurfing, I would say best conditions is strong wind up to 30, 35 knots, and then 3 to 4 meter waves, sideshow wind where you can ride the waves with your windsurf equipment. And I think in surfing terms, without windsurfing, without wind, offshore wind. Offshore wind means the waves are glassy and stay open. That's what you want as a surfer at the end of the day. Warm water, board shorts, I would prefer that. That's definitely something I would opt for. And let's say double overhead waves. There could be the perfect.
Okay. What is your next surf location or windsurf or surf location that you are planning to go beside now being in South Africa?
So the next one that I'm really looking forward to is going to be on the Mentawai Islands in Indonesia. We're going with a big group of friends, and a friend of mine, it's his birthday, and we wanted to do this trip for a long time. We've all scheduled and planned it, and it's going to be happening in the middle of March. So I'm definitely looking forward to go out there.
That sounds terrific, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm actually frothing. I'm very much looking forward to go there. I think it's going to be a trip of a lifetime. Very much looking forward to it.
And for someone who wants to do a what is easier, front flip or back flip with the windsurf?
I think a front flip is easier than a back flip. A back flip or a back loop, in the sense, is a bit more technical than a front flip. So I think front loop is actually an easier trick to learn. Definitely.
Any advice where you can learn that?
You can also do it on the lakes in Switzerland when you have like those föhn days, strong wind days. A lot of Swiss windsurfing friends of mine are frequently shredding the lakes in Switzerland. So you don't need to have a big wave in order to learn a front flip. It's basically a lot of technique and doing a controlled wipe out while keeping the sail forward. So it's actually more of a head thing, learning it, than an actual technical thing. You need to commit to it once you do it, because you're basically looping yourself into the water, but you're not rotating up, let's say vertical, but you're wanting to rotate sideways on the lake in order to be still able to land and then go further after that.
Probably not something I'm going to try the next couple of days.
No, for sure. That's why we should do it next time when I visit you in Switzerland.
Yes, let's have some ambition there, right? But so
no,
final advice from a surf. You actually already said that. I think your most important takeouts with the communication and the adaptability, I think, and the resilience behind that as well. So that was, and I think it's also being calm yourself, right? That was also something that you were kind of quite. So
yeah, I mean, everyone is wired differently, right? Everyone has stuff that works for him or herself or that doesn't work. So for me, as I said, it's that yoga and breath exercise that is calming me down. And not that I'm a guru and that all my chakras have to be aligned at all the time.
No,
it's just like a way, or like putting forward a routine that one feels comfortable with. Because I think once you do something over and over again, you naturally calm yourself down by repeatedly doing that. And that's also what I meant with being exposed to different conditions, different nationalities, and different. Plug in my computer here quickly. Sorry.
No problem.
I think you will also, everyone figures it out with time what works for him or herself while having tried different techniques or methods. Yeah,
So
definitely.
Consistency as well then.
Consistency,
Yes.
resilience, dedication, determination. I think that's the, yeah.
And 1.5 hours of water exposure every day.
Every morning, every day.
Every morning, every day.
Don't tell that my employers or my boss. I hope he's not watching the video.
No, I mean, you said the sunset, it was not sunset. The sun rise was around 5 o'clock, right? So
yeah, so actually
there's a lot of.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're trying to go as early as possible here, so roughly at around 6. So done by 7:30, 8, which is 7 o'clock in Europe, and then you can start at 8 when everyone is awake in Europe, which is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. Marco, it was a super pleasure having you on this podcast. I think actually it was really cool that it actually connected with the discussion that I had with Daniel from the podcast before. It was a really nice build-up and some concrete advice. Thank you very much for your time.
You are more than welcome. It was a pleasure reconnecting, and happy to, if there's more sessions or more topics that we can enlighten each other, I'm happy to join always. You know that. Was good to be part of it. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I hope all the windsurfers and surfers and the water sport enthusiasts out there have different feelings or have similar feelings to what I said, how I see surfing coming together also in a corporate or working world, and how it prepares you in general for life. I can only highly recommend, get out there, have fun, stay active. Yeah, life's short.
Yes. Perfect ending words. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So a couple of days have passed now since I interviewed Marco, and what a life, right? He actually got up and went surfing, not windsurfing, but surfing in South Africa for 1.5 hours. Then started working at 8 o'clock, which is insane. I mean, who doesn't want to have a lifestyle like that? But beside that, I think it was really insightful. Also the fact that what he kind of took out for him out of his professional experience, trying out a trick and falling until you actually manage to do that, to succeed, and then really kind of move on from that. And I think that is one of the biggest learnings everybody should take with them. The other thing is for me also the fact, the way he kind of prepared for competitions, but also for difficult situations in that context, which he also can take immediately into his professional life or private life as well. For him, the techniques of yoga and breathing works, and that's obviously fantastic. I'm not sure if that works for everybody, but it's obviously a super combination actually to get yourself kind of calmed down in your body and kind of centered, and not be thinking and overthinking too much, but just kind of be in the now. So fantastic talk, and the funny thing was actually that we continued talking after we stopped the recording for another half an hour, which we then kind of saw and had the feeling that there is another podcast behind that, because one of the reasons that he actually started or stopped windsurfing, and started a regular, let's put it that way, half regular career was also some learnings, and I think we're gonna touch upon that in the next episode, which hasn't been recorded just yet, but will probably come in a couple of weeks or months. So hope you like this one. I have by now actually recorded already number 6, and hope you like it. I'm trying to improve every day. See you in the next one. Bye.